Welcome back to another video. A slight reminder, I don't want you guys watching these videos just like watching Netflix. If you want to be a successful trader, I want you to watch these videos while writing down notes. I want you to watch these videos trying to understand every single thing that I said. Alright? The best way to watch is by writing down notes and going back to everything that I say that you don't understand. To be a successful trader, hard work is a must. Alright, so in this video I will be discussing about fair value gaps. So, what is a fair value gap? A fair value gap is an imbalance in the market, right? Those gaps that you see in the market are called fair value gap. Next one is fair value gap is an inefficient price delivery. What does it mean? I told you that the algorithm always try to seek balance in price delivery. The algorithm always try to give chance both to the buyers and sellers. If the market has only went down lower, that is not how the algorithm works. Like I told you, right? The price only looks for one of two things: imbalance and liquidity, right? So, if we have an imbalance, the price will most likely go back into that fair value gap or imbalance before continuing lower or higher. Alright, so next one is gap in fair value. Like I told you, the algorithm always try to give both equal opportunities to both buyer and sellers. Alright, so that is how they build liquidity. They always try to give balance, to give opportunities to both the sellers and buyers. If there's a gap in the market, there's a gap in fair value, meaning the value of the price action is not equal for both buyers and sellers. You need to remember that. Let's go on to the next slide. Alright, so as we can see, this is a fair value gap. A fair value gap is formed by a three-candle formation. The first candle, second candle, and the third candle. If we are bullish, the high of the first candle will form the low of the fair value gap. Mark this out: the high of the first candle and the low of the third candle. Second candle mostly formed the gap. The second candle is mostly the expansion and will form the gap. Alright, so what causes a fair value gap? It's caused by the market makers or smart money. Where do you think fair value gap mostly forms? Like I told you, we have accumulation, manipulation, and distribution. In those phases, where do you think fair value gap mostly forms? Is it in the accumulation? Or is it in the manipulation? Or in the distribution? You can see fair value gaps in the accumulation, but it's not a valid one. Where do you think the valid fair value gaps occur? Yes, in the distribution. Remember, right after manipulation, there's a very big move right after manipulation, because that is where the market makers and smart money enter, right? For example, we have equal lows right here, then the price manipulates lower, then goes higher. Where do you think the fair value gap is? Right here, right? The price reprices into that fair value gap and now continues higher, right? So this is the algorithm reprices too quickly. Why too quickly? That is to not give any opportunity to the trapped traders. Like I explained to you in the last videos, right? They don't want to give opportunity to the trap traders. The trap traders are going to be stopped out right away into the wrong side of the market, and they are all gone, right? So there are two variations for fair value gaps. First is the buy side imbalance, sell side inefficiency, or what they call BC. Second is the sell side imbalance, buy side inefficiency, or what they call CV. Alright? I don't want to make things complicated to you. Alright? These two are just the same. They only differ on the trend of the market. For example, we are bullish, it's called buy side imbalance, sell side inefficiency. But the function of the fair value gap, it's just the same. Alright? I just need you to remember that these two variations are just the same. Right? These are all just fair value gaps. These are just called this way because of the trend of the price action. I will show it to you in the next slides. Alright, so we have buy side imbalance, sell side inefficiency. As we can see right here, we have our fair value gap right here. In our setup, I am not going to refer this fair value gap as BC. I'm just going to address fair value gaps as fair value gaps, whether it is bearish fair value gap or bullish fair value gap. Alright, so this is a bullish fair value gap or BC. The price should find support in this area and continued higher. Right, so the price repriced too quickly, only offered buy side. Alright, so the second variation is the sell side imbalance, buy side inefficiency, or what they call CB. Like I told you, it's just a fair value gap. It's just deeper in the price action, whether it is bearish or bullish. This is a bearish fair value gap. We'll only call it fair value gap, not CB or BC. Alright, so this is a fair value gap, a 3-candle formation. So price repriced lower too quickly, leaving an imbalance right here. As we can see, we have this low, the wick of the first candle, and the top wick of the third candle. And this is the fair value gap or imbalance. So how are we going to use a fair value gap? As we can see, we are bullish. So what should the price do? Like I told you, PD arrays are the true support and resistance. So this fair value gap should offer support. Yes. So the price should respect this fair value gap going higher. Right? So we expect a fair value gap to be rebalanced. Alright, so this is how we see if price is respecting or disrespecting a fair value gap. Alright, so here we have a bullish fair value gap. If we are bullish, we want to see price respect this fair value gap. As we can see right here, this is a very perfect reaction in this fair value gap. Alright, so if the price is strongly bullish, the price can just respect this upper part of the fair value gap. Alright, so our first line of defense, like I said, the first line of defense is this top part of the fair value gap. Alright, our second line of defense is this consequent encroachment, or just call midpoint. Alright, I don't want to make it complicated. We'll just call it midpoint. Alright, so our first line of defense is this upper part of the fair value gap. Our second line of defense is the midpoint of the fair value gap. Our last line of defense is the last part of the fair value gap. Alright? Alright, so here are the types of rebalance FVG. Alright, so when you are using fair value gap, here are the three types that the price might do. The first is full fill. The price might full rebalance these fair value gaps to offer balance offering for both buyers and sellers. As we can see right here, this candle closed out this imbalance, this fair value gap. This is our first type, the full fill. As we can see, the price beautifully respected that fair value gap and continued going higher. Alright, so these wicks can pass through our fair value gap. Only wicks can pass through the fair value gap. We don't want anybody closing in this fair value gap. We don't want the body to close below this fair value gap, alright? Wicks can pass through the fair value gap, not body. Take it down on your notes, alright? Alright, so this is how we are going to expect full fill in our retracement into a fair value gap, alright? So for example, you have an order block right here or a breaker block, alright? So the price is most likely to go down into the discount zone. Why? Because we have no other line of defense. Yes, you are right. And also we are up in the premium zone, right? So our first line of defense is the fair value gap right here. Alright, so I need you to take this down on your notes. As we can see, the price respected our first line of defense, right? That is the first line of defense since we have no other PD arrays in this area. And now the price has continued higher. As you can see, the price reached back down into the discount zone before going higher. Alright, so our second type of retracement or rebalance into a fair value gap is our consequent encroachment or just midpoint. Meaning the price will beautifully respected the 50% of that fair value gap and continue higher. So this is how we are going to anticipate this. Alright, so for example, we have an overlapping fair value gap and order block. Alright? So the price will most likely just reach back down in this area with the overlapping order block and fair value gap, since it is a very strong support. Why? Because we have two overlapping line of defense. Yes, that's correct. We have two overlapping line of defense, fair value gap and the order block. So the price should not go any lower. As you can see, the price respected that midpoint of the fair value gap and continued going higher. Alright, so for our last type of fair value gap retracement, we have the institutional order flow entry drill, or the IOFED. This is simply just the fair value gap being touched barely, being repealed barely by the retracement. Alright? So I will show you what I mean. Alright, so this IOFED is simply just the price retracing back barely into the fair value gap. Alright? This mostly happens when we have just been very on consolidation and the price is now going to the real direction of the market. So this is how we are going to anticipate that. Alright? So as we can see right here, we have an order block right here. This one, let's say it's an order block or a breaker block. This is our first line of defense. As you can see, it's just above the fair value gap. Right? Of course, the price will respect the first line of defense first, which is our order block. This is a very good confluence. As we can see, we have overlapping order blocks and fair value gap. Price should not go any lower because we have two lines of defense right here. Let's see what the price will do. As we can see, the price barely retraced back into the fair value gap because we already have this order block right here that is providing support into this price action. Alright? And now the price has continued higher. Alright, so that's all for this video. This is just for fair value gaps. Alright? I'm trying not to make it very, very long so that it will not burn you out and you will understand more things in a short period of time. Alright? If you're confused or having a hard time understanding everything, you can repeat this video. Alright? Take your time and good luck. Alright? I'll see you next time.